I recently sailed on Royal Caribbean's Allure of the Seas, which is one of the biggest cruise ships in the world. It has a capacity of 5,496 guests at double occupancy and 2,054 crew. That's a lot of people on one cruise ship. And the Oasis class ships have always been known for offering amazing experiences. So many things to do. They're really the standard in which other cruise ships are judged against. But I've always done long cruises on them, week-long sailings. So this time, I went on a 3-night cruise over the weekend because this is Royal Caribbean's new direction. And I wanted to see what's it like on a 3-night cruise and really talk about, is it worthwhile to try one of these mega ships out for just a couple nights? This wasn't the first time I've been on Allure of the Seas. I've sailed on Allure a number of times, along with Oasis of the Seas, Harmony of the Seas, Wonder of the Seas, and Symphony of the Seas. The Oasis class ships are really well known around the world because they are the biggest cruise ships in the world. Now that'll change when Icon of the Seas comes out in January of 2024, but it's still a really big ship with or without Icon. Cruise ships as big as Allure of the Seas have always been a favorite of mine. I really like the big ships. I love the variety of things to do. It always endears me to them, but I was worried that going on an Oasis class ship for just 3 days would feel like too much with too little time. I was worried that we're going to get on board and there'd be so many cool things to do with only 3 nights going over a weekend that it would leave me wanting more and ultimately disappointed in the idea of taking just a weekend cruise. Royal Caribbean is trying this out. Traditionally, when cruise ships would do weekend cruises, they would be a little bit older vessels in the fleet. Not necessarily the oldest in the fleet, like Grandeur of the Seas, which came out in the 90s, but they'd be been there, done that kind of a ship. Traditionally, the new ships and the biggest ships, like the Oasis class, would be reserved for week-long sailings because those sailings would command a higher price overall, and it's where the demand really was. But Royal Caribbean is re-looking at the weekend cruise market because they want to attract new cruisers. The reason why Royal Caribbean and all cruise lines love new cruisers is because they're the largest source of new customers and growth in the industry. It's because the majority of the public has never cruised before, and that's who Royal Caribbean wants to attract by offering some amazing cruise ships. A ship that basically stands out from the rest, that someone's going to say, I want to try that out, but they're also not willing to go for a week. A lot of people who've never cruised before are worried about common myths about cruising, like feeling trapped or bored or seasick, and that prevents them from wanting to do a longer sailing, so they want to only do a weekend cruise. But when they do that and they go on an older ship, it's not quite as alluring or attractive as the bigger ships out there. So Royal Caribbean is now starting Allure of the Seas with 3-night weekend cruises along with 4-night cruises out of Port Canaveral, Florida. And then in 2024, you're going to have Utopia of the Seas doing the exact same thing, a brand new cruise ship, the next Oasis class cruise ship, and it's going to offer really the very best of the Oasis class on these short sailings. Now, being a weekend cruise, I had to make my peace with the idea that I was going to be able to do everything because it would be impossible. And to be perfectly honest with you, it's impossible to do everything on a ship as big as Allure of the Seas, even on a week-long sailing. But I kind of came to that conclusion of I'm going to enjoy the time that I have on board and maximize what I'm going to do plenty of activities, but still be able to get something out of it. And that's still better than, of course, being at home. I thought about it a lot, and it really reminded me of the same way that I think about if I go to a city. If I plan a trip to New York City, the greatest city in the world, and I want to go spend some time there, I'm not disappointed because I didn't get to see every major attraction or thing to do in New York City. No, I just prioritize the most important things to me in that city and go from there. It's also similar in some ways to a theme park. When you go to a major theme park anywhere in the US or around the world, you don't necessarily need to do every single ride for it to be worth it or a worthwhile endeavor, right? You go there, you do as many rides as you possibly can, or at least as many rides as you are willing to do, but that's entertainment, that's enjoyable, and it gives you reason to come back. And that's true of cities, that's true of theme parks, and it's also true of cruise ships as well. I essentially came around to the line of thinking that why should I feel compelled to try and do everything on a particular cruise ship? I can still have a great time doing a subset of that and then having an impetus to come back for another cruise. And if you all know me very well, then you know that I never really need much of an excuse to book another cruise. Allure of the Seas was sailing out of Port Canaveral, Florida, which is a short drive from where I live. I'm lucky enough to live just about an hour away, so I didn't need to worry about flying in anywhere or getting a hotel before the cruise. I just drove over the morning of the sailing and then got to the terminal, dropped off my luggage, and then parked the car. It's one of my favorite little tricks when you're dropping off and then parking is to always do it in that order. Don't park the car and then have to lug all your luggage down to the check-in area. Royal Caribbean's check-in process is always easy, but it was even easier because we were staying in a star class room. We were actually booked in the Royal Loft Suite, which is the biggest suite on Allure of the Seas. And when you're staying in star class, you just meet a star class representative right at the door of the terminal, and they walk you through the entire process rather than you having to do it yourself. Really, everything about star class, which is the uppermost tier of Royal Caribbean's suite program on the Oasis and Quantum class ships, is all about making things easier. It's not that you can't do it on your own or that it's difficult to do on your own, just making it easier. It's the easy button essentially for cruising. After going through security and checking in, our Royal Genie arrived and met us to escort us on board the ship. The Royal Genie is probably the signature benefit of staying in a star class suite. They're essentially a combination of guest services, butler, and magic maker, and they're all there to make your life super easy and escort you past pretty much any line. In fact, when you're staying in star class, essentially everything is included in your cruise fare. Drinks, food, even Starbucks included in there. Really, the only thing that doesn't get included with star class are things like shore excursions or spa treatments or souvenirs. But basically everything else on the ship is included with the star class experience. As I mentioned earlier, we've sailed on Allure of the Seas a number of times, and the check-in process is easy even if you're not doing star class. My advice to you is make sure you get the Royal Caribbean app, install it before you get on board the ship, and do everything in the check-in process. Upload a photo, scan your passport, and add a credit card to your account. It makes that check-in process so easy. After boarding the ship, my first stop was Sabor, which is the Mexican specialty restaurant. Now, being in star class, all specialty restaurants are included. Ordinarily, we might have just gone to the Windjammer for lunch, but since it was included, why not? We went to Sabor for a meal over there. Sabor is a concept of specialty dining that is available only on a couple of ships. It's essentially a fading concept. Royal Caribbean is slowly phasing it out. It's only available on Allure of the Seas, Harmony of the Seas, and Liberty of the Seas as of the recording of this video. But I fully expect Royal Caribbean to remove these and replace Sabor with another concept as soon as those ships go in for refurbishment next time. There's two reasons why I really like Sabor. Number one, I'm a sucker for Mexican food, but number two, the food here is really good. It's a combination of traditional Mexican food along with modern stuff, and I like the fact that there's a good variety of food. It's a cover charge restaurant. You pay the cover charge and then everything on the menu is included, and their margarita selection is fantastic, second to none when it comes to margaritas. If I can have one wish for Sabor, is that after it gets replaced, the margarita menu lives on in another way. We ate quesadillas, burritos, tacos, and a lot of chips and guacamole. It was really good and a nice way to start our day. After lunch, we stopped and went to our muster station, took care of that. It's so much easier with Royal Caribbean. All you have to do is essentially do 2 steps within the Royal Caribbean app, listen to the emergency drill, watch a safety video, and then report on board to the actual station so you know where it is. Super easy. I can't believe there are still a couple cruise lines who don't do the digital e-muster. It's nuts. Now, as I mentioned, we're staying in a Royal Loft Suite for this cruise. This was an epic splurge on our part because we wanted to try this room out. Now, being a 3-night cruise, a bigger room is easier to afford because the total price is less on a 3-night cruise than on a 7-night cruise. And we actually got really lucky with the price. We paid $7,000, which is a lot of money for any cabin. I get that. But for the Royal Loft Suite, it's actually really not a bad deal in the grand scheme of how much this room usually goes for. That's one advantage of going on a short cruise, is that cabins overall are going to cost less than on a 7-night cruise. Usually on longer sailings, the per night rate for these cabins in general is going to be less, but overall, it's probably going to cost you more than on a shorter cruise. So one nice perk off the bat was we were able to afford a nicer cabin on this particular sailing, and I just thought, why not go for it? Go big or go home, splurge a little bit, and I really wanted to see what this room was like. I mean, part of me also was curious is, how compelling is this kind of a cabin? Is it worth it to stay in one of these rooms? What do you really get for it? And so there was a little bit of curiosity, research, and of course, being spoiled involved in the decision for this room. This suite is 1,524 square feet in size and has a balcony of 843 square feet. So it's not only the largest suite on Allure of the Seas, it is one of the largest suites you're going to find on almost any cruise ship out there. Now, this cabin is located on deck 17, which is a deck that you're only going to find suites on. It's also where you're going to find Coastal Kitchen, which is the suite's only restaurant, and of course, the suite lounge. It's kind of like a private enclave that you're going to find here on deck 17. It's not quite as ornate or built out as Wonder of the Seas, because Wonder of the Seas, even though it is an Oasis class ship, has a full neighborhood on deck 17 and 18, but Allure being the second in the class and Wonder being the 6th, it's a little bit different between the two ships. Nonetheless, it's really nice having that area. The only downside staying on any suite on deck 17 is you're really beholden to the elevators, and you're going to depend on them far more than somebody who's staying in a different cabin. First of all, you can only use the central elevators that are midship. You can't use the front elevators because they don't go to that deck. And second of all, elevators on Oasis-class ships in general tend to be a little busier than other ships because of how big they are. And so you're just going to find maybe waiting around for elevators more often than you might for a cabin elsewhere on the ship. If you're wondering what we did for the rest of the afternoon on embarkation day, yeah, we spent it in our balcony. Part of the impetus for booking a room like this is to take advantage of what this room offers, and I wanted to make sure we took advantage of that fully by spending more time in the cabin. Usually I get stir crazy in the cabin. I want to go out and do other things, but we definitely felt like we wanted to spend more time out here. Not only is there more space in the cabin, but there was also a jacuzzi on our balcony that we could use, and as well as that, we also had just amazing views all around us, which were perfect leading into the evening hours. For our first night dinner out, we decided to go to 150 Central Park. This is among my favorite restaurants on any Royal Caribbean cruise ship. 150 Central Park is essentially modern American food, and there's a variety of different food options out here, but between the garlic bread appetizer, the beef tenderloin for 2 entree, and the fried cheesecake for dessert, it is an incredible meal that never disappoints. We knew we had to come here for dinner on night 1, start off the cruise the right way. Again, a nice benefit of having a Royal Genie is you don't have to worry about reservations for any restaurants. You tell the Genie where you want to eat, what time, they make it happen. It's just that simple. My go-to appetizer at 150 Central Park is the velouté soup. I don't even know how to describe it, but it's good. It's vegetables. I enjoy it. Tastes really, really good. Then there's the beef tenderloin for 2, which I shared with my wife. Absolutely a home run, and I'd order that every single time. It's one of the best cuts of meat you're going to find on any Royal Caribbean cruise ship. And I also augmented it with the cauliflower steak. I know that sounds kind of weird, but number one, I try to eat a little healthier and get some more vegetables. But the combination of the cauliflower and the beef was really good. I like that quite a bit. It helped mix it up a little bit. I don't know, maybe I'm crazy on that one, but I really like that. But I was definitely sure to save room for the fried cheesecake dessert, which I know is Jenna, our YouTube video editor's favorite food dessert cuisine of all time, and she's not wrong on that. It is amazing. I mean, it's cheesecake and it's fried. You gotta try at least 7 or 8 of these because it is that good. Our evening entertainment took us to Mamma Mia, the Broadway musical. Allure of the Seas has a full Broadway musical. It's not a medley, it's not a shortened version, it's the full 2.5-hour show in the Royal Theater, and it's included in your cruise fare, whether you're in Star Class or not. It's incredible that Royal Caribbean offers full Broadway shows on its ships, and being that my wife and my kids are big Broadway fans, we wanted to make sure that we got seats for this show to check it out. Now, to be perfectly honest, I've seen Mamma Mia on both Quantum of the Seas and Allure of the Seas in the past, but it's the music of ABBA, so it's a timeless show, and we can see it over and over. It's a great show to see every single time, and the fact that it's included in your cruise fare makes it a very compelling choice. After the show, we grabbed the drink in the pub, which is located on the Royal Promenade, and one of my favorite cruise activities on any ship is to go to the pub and enjoy live music here. What's great about the pub is that they have a guitarist there in the evening that plays bar songs, the kind of songs that I'm used to hearing at bars, especially when I was back in college. I don't know, there's something about it I really enjoy. So you get a pint of beer, you listen to the music. It's one of my favorite things to do. And then we rounded out the evening by going to Casino Royale. I love Casino Royale. I'm not a huge gambler, but it is nice being able to go there and enjoy a couple of games and just kind of hang out. The casino on Allure of the Seas is truly massive. The casino is smoking, however. There's technically a smoking and a non-smoking side, but the smoke doesn't know which side is non-smoking, so you're going to smell it regardless of that. But I made my peace with that. It is what it is. I wish Royal Caribbean would change it, but hey, at the end of the day, I still enjoy my time. And to be perfectly honest, the air conditioning was working overtime on Allure of the Seas in the casino, and it never was too overwhelming for what we wanted to do. Personally, I like doing a combination of a couple things in the casino. I might play craps or blackjack, but I'll also end up on the slot machines because it's a good social activity with my wife. On our second day of the cruise, we went to Nassau, Bahamas. Now, a 3-night cruise is pretty typical that you're going to visit the Nassau Bahamas and then Perfect Day, Coco Key, or reverse order, something like that. But being in Nassau and being that we had a really nice room, we decided we weren't going to get off the ship in Nassau. I don't usually do that in many cases, but given that we had been in Nassau many times and we had a really nice room, I wanted to maximize our time on the ship. Again, being a 3-night cruise, there are going to be compromises somewhere because you don't have time to do it all. And for me, I decided if we're going to do a 3-night cruise on Allure of the Seas, I wanted to make sure that we had time to be able to maximize on board the ship rather than maybe go out and go to a beach or something like that. After all, odds are I'm going to be in Nassau a couple dozen more times over the next couple months, so it's not like I won't have an opportunity here. One trade-off, though, with staying on board the ship while your ship is in port is that there's going to be less activities to do while aboard. Certainly, the pools will be open. You're going to have the Windjammer Cafe, so it's not like you can't get food or enjoy some of the basic activities, but you're going to find far less classes, events, and group activities offered throughout the day. It's really not until you get close to the set sail time that the activities start to ramp back up. In looking at the cruise compass, you'll find a variety of things to do, but not a ton. There were a couple of trivia events and a couple of seminars too, but we decided to spend the day primarily just relaxing, again, back in the room and enjoying time. I also freely admit that it's also a fantastic opportunity to take a nap and catch up on the sleep that you might have missed on during the previous night. For lunch, because there weren't any specialty restaurants open and it was really just the Windjammer, we decided to go with room service and order food to the room. Now again, room service is included with all suites, not just Star Class suites. And while the room service menu is nothing particularly special, it certainly satisfied what we needed for lunch and it gave us something to eat. Once it was time for Allure of the Seas to leave Nassau though, the entertainment schedule really picked up. Being a 3-night cruise, Royal Caribbean is going to pack more shows into one night. Like her sister ships, Allure of the Seas has 3 primary theaters on board: the Royal Theater, the Aqua Theater, and Studio B Ice Rink. There's shows in each venue, along with comedy shows, live music, and more. Now, Royal Caribbean's entertainment team consolidated the show schedule to fit into a 3-night cruise. So the good news is you can see all the shows. The issue, though, is, especially a difference between a 3 and a 7-night cruise, is there will be more than one show each evening. As an example, you might have a show in the Royal Theater with Mamma Mia and the Aqua Theater performing on the same night. Now, on a longer sailing, you can afford to skip the first showtime and catch it later in the cruise, but with short cruises, there may be just one evening to see it. This is especially important with the Aqua Theater, which can sometimes have issues with shows being canceled and thus having a show canceled. Like other short cruises that Royal Caribbean has offered on other ship classes, you'll find lots of activities throughout the day. The difference, though, is that Allure has more venues than smaller ships, so there's more competing choices. We had originally made plans to go see the Aqua show on Allure, but we decided to switch things up and actually go to the adult comedy. There's an adult comedy club on Allure of the Seas on Deck 4, and I'm always a big fan of the adult comedy. Some comedians are better than others, but number one, it's a fairly reasonably timed show. It's not very long, probably in and out in about 45 minutes, and it's a nice change of pace. And the comedy club is included in your cruise fare, so that's also a nice benefit to going there. There were 2 comedians on our particular sailing. Both were good. I like the first one a little bit better, but it was a nice way to spend the evening. After the comedy club let out, it was time for the 70s party on the Royal Promenade. Royal Caribbean has traditionally offered a big 70s party on cruise ships that have a Royal Promenade, which are the Oasis class, the Freedom class, and the Voyager class ships. And they'll also have 70s parties on other ships as well, but the Royal Promenade is probably the most well-known one. I'm not a huge fan of these dance parties. They're very loud. I don't really love 70s music quite as much that I want to get out there and dance for it, probably because I wasn't alive during the 70s. And also, I just think it really makes everything come to a stop. Because on the Royal Promenade, there's so many places, but they will stop other entertainment in favor of what's going on in the street party there. That includes Boleros, that includes the pub, and that includes the Schooner Bar. So it's kind of a damper if you're not into the whole 70s thing. It's been a Royal Caribbean tradition for many years. I've made my peace with it, but I don't love it. Our final day was a visit to Perfect Day at Coco Cay, which is Royal Caribbean's private island. And for this day, we actually did get off the ship because I managed to get a decent price at the Coco Beach Club. The Coco Beach Club is a reserved area of Perfect Day at Coco Cay where you can pay extra to enjoy a secluded spot. It's less crowded and has limit on how many people can go there because they want to provide a more curated experience. Now, to be perfectly clear, you can have a great time around Perfect Day at Coco Cay without spending any extra money. More often than not, we end up in some place like Oasis Lagoon or South Beach or Chill Island because there's many places that are included in your cruise fare. But the rising prices of Perfect Day at Coco Cay have really compelled us to never really book anything beyond that because the pricing was just gone out of hand. However, I will say, we managed to get a good price on a floating cabana at the Coco Beach Club during a sale that happened last year. I figured why not give it a try one more time because who knows if this price will ever come back down again. These cabanas are actually situated on the water. You walk out on a dock and they're kind of like Bora Bora floating cabanas in the sense that they're right on the water and they're your own private enclave. They can accommodate up to 8 guests and you have waiter service that'll bring you drinks and food. What's interesting is the food is included with your visit here, but not the drink. So if you don't have a drink package, you'll pay extra for them, which I think is really weird, quite frankly, but Nonetheless, that's the policy. As you might imagine, based on what you're seeing here in the video, it was a really stunningly beautiful day. We had great weather, and if you're renting a cabana, whether it's the floating cabanas or any of the cabanas around Perfect Day at Coco Key, it is all about just relaxing. And that's exactly what we did. We hung around, had the music going, and we just enjoyed the breeze. I'd actually never got into the ocean water. I actually don't love the ocean that much, but I like seeing the ocean and being on the ocean. And everybody cruises differently, everybody relaxes differently, and in my case, I just wanted to be able to enjoy it one more time at the Cocoa Beach Club. The highlight for sure, though, is lunch at the Cocoa Beach Club, because you can go to the restaurant there that's included in your fare with the Cocoa Beach Club, and it includes some amazing food. The filet mignon, lobster, rum cake, it was all really great, and I love that food. In fact, I stand by my statement that the filet mignon at the Cocoa Beach Club restaurant is the best filet served anywhere within Royal Caribbean. As our beach day came to an end, it was time to get back on board the ship and enjoy one last evening on board. This time I wanted to check out the ice skating show. The ice skating show on Allure of the Seas is new in the sense that it's new to Allure. They used to have a Monopoly themed ice show on Allure, but in the last month or two, Royal Caribbean swapped it out for a different show. Now it's new to Allure, but I'm pretty sure this is the same show that was on Harmony of the Seas, known as Blades. Blades essentially takes a number of different songs that are pretty well known, fairly popular modern songs, and the skaters do a number of choreographed tricks all around the rink. It's pretty impressive, actually. And you might question going to an ice skating show in general, but Royal Caribbean's ice skating shows are better than you might expect. For dinner, we went to SAMB Grill, which is a Brazilian steakhouse, and it's another soon-to-be-replaced restaurant concept because Royal Caribbean rolled it out probably about a decade ago, and it's slowly been phased out on other ships. Regardless of that, it's still available here, and I thought, why not give it a try? Plus, my oldest daughter really loves steak, so we wanted to go here to give her basically unlimited steak. It's a Brazilian steakhouse, or somewhat similar to one you might have on land, where they keep bringing you out all sorts of meats on a metal skewer, and they cut it for you until you literally tell them stop because you flip over one of the signals from green to red like a stop sign. The issue I have with this restaurant is that they cook the meats to order. On a land-based Brazilian restaurant, they'll just keep walking around the restaurant with different kinds of meats, and it's up to you which ones you want to pick, right? However, on Royal Caribbean, they cook the meat to your specification. And this is twofold. One, to make sure that it's what you're expecting, but also two, to prevent food waste. I can appreciate the food waste thing. The problem is the meal was very unevenly paced. And there were many situations in which we were just sitting around waiting for our food. In fact, they brought out the sides like sweet mashed potatoes and broccolini and mushrooms. These were warm when they were served, but by the time the meat got around to us, they were already lukewarm at best, if not cold. Even when you got the meat, it might be a couple of minutes before the next one came around, and I just again found that it was unevenly paced, and I wish they would just bring it around more often like they do in a land restaurant rather than try and reinvent the wheel on this one. It's kind of a moot point because I'm sure this restaurant's going away sometime soon, but we tried it. It was okay, but I'm probably not going back here again if I have the opportunity before SAMB Grill gets replaced. Overall, we had a great time on Allure of the Seas, and I was glad to go on it for just the weekend. I would have certainly preferred to have more time and go on a longer sailing, but that isn't always in the cards. The school calendar and work obligations curtail a lot of people's ability to cruise, especially my kids. So a short cruise is better than no cruise at all. I like to work in weekend sailings as a way to augment my longer sailings. I don't plan weekend cruises as our primary family vacations, but they're great for, hey, let's just get out of the house for a few days kind of trip, especially because I live in Florida. Going into the cruise, I knew I wasn't going to try everything, and I found myself liberated without that burden. Plus, it gave me a good reason to come back and do it again. So now I want to know, would you do a 3-night cruise on an Oasis class ship? Have you already booked a 3-night cruise on an Oasis class cruise ship, whether it's Allure of the Seas or Utopia of the Seas? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. While you're below our video, hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications. That's that little bell icon to let YouTube know that you want to be notified when we post a brand new video. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.